WNST.net. And we're watching a lot of playoff baseball all weekend long here in the American League and National League Championship Series. The Terps, they took it on the chin last week up at State College. They're back after the Bird Field at noon on Saturday, taking on a team that, quite frankly, I don't know a whole lot about. It's the Minnesota Golden Gophers. I know that they also struggled with Penn State 2 weeks ago, and in the end, Penn State got them in OT. We welcome in from not only the football, but the basketball side, and he's in town. He's in D.C. for the Big Ten Media Day for basketball. He is Mike Grimm. He's been calling Golden Gophers action for over a decade now. You can follow his journey out on Twitter at Mike Grimm and the number 3. That's 2 M's in Grimm. Mike, what's going on, man? The Terps looked like they were onto something and then went up to Penn State and looked like, like the old Terps used to look, right?
Right, yeah. I think we're all trying to feel this situation out with the new look of the Big Ten, and it's not surprising. This is the first visit that Minnesota's had out here, and on top of that, it's only the second time these two teams have ever played. They played once back in 1977 in the old Hall of Fame game, which was a bowl game in Birmingham, Alabama. That's it. So there's not a lot of history. That's part of the, I suppose, the growing pains of Maryland fans are probably going through trying to acquaint themselves with new teams and trying to get new rivals and all of that. So the Gophers will be in town and will be ready for football. Minnesota had hopes of being a contender. Nestor in the West Division, they're sitting at 0-2, so now they're looking, down a death march here that they would have to win out. The good news is, I think they're, slowly entering a part of the schedule where they think they can, string some wins together. They have Rutgers next week. That's followed by Purdue and Illinois. And just based on standings alone, that would give you some hope that you can at least keep yourself in the mix. But it's a team that's going to be without its starting quarterback. At least 99% sure they'll not have Mitch Leitner. He is out with a concussion, and a guy who has taken a grand total of about 7 snaps in his college career will get the start on Saturday.
Tell me about that situation because, obviously losing the quarterback, the Terps had the same situation last week. And, one thing I've learned here in the Big Ten is there aren't enough quarterbacks to go around. It's really not much different than the NFL. A lot of those guys wind up in the SEC or out west or someplace where they're going to throw the football a lot. Certainly for the Big Ten, we'd like to get to know less of Ohio State and Michigan at this point. But it really is kind of weirdly unbalanced in some ways with scheduling. I mean, much like you guys, we play all our toughest games at the end. You guys have Nebraska and Wisconsin late on the schedule. We have Nebraska and Ohio State, Michigan. We thought Michigan State was going to be better than they've been. But the last year has nothing to do with this year in the Big Ten, right?
You're right. And as far as the quarterback situation goes, so Mitch Leitner is a fifth-year senior, plus he was an early enrollee. So, he's going on 6 years on campus. His next start, whenever it is going to be, will be his 38th career start. And he's played in 40 games. It was his 40th game last week against Iowa. He took a hit to the head.
That's a lot of starting football for a college player. Not a lot of college quarterbacks play 40 games, right?
Yeah, no.
And probably on his road to playing almost 50, right? At the beginning of the season.
Yeah, no doubt. And he had struggled some, and so there's this line, and it's kind of a narrative still. He's a hometown kid. He's from Twin Cities, suburb of Lakeville. But it's been interesting because he had some growing pains early as a redshirt freshman might, and that kind of set the narrative for him. And he's had some, like last week, he didn't play very well at all. But over the last calendar year, he's been as good as any quarterback in the Big Ten statistically. And I think that goes to your point earlier. Now he's been fine. He's good. He's NFL people think he might have a chance because he's got a nice arm and he's 6'4" and 230 and he can run and he's tough. But there's just the quality of quarterback in the league is not great. If you look at what he's done, and it's one of the top statistical calendar years, so to speak. When you go back to last year in mid-October until this year, so we'll see what Saturday brings. Connor Rhoda is the new quarterback, and like I said, he's thrown a grand total of 1 pass in his career and played about 10 or 12 plays, and that's it. He was a walk-on to start. He's earned a scholarship, and we'll see what he brings to College Park on Saturday.
You guys have run the ball pretty well, and I think that's got to be of some concern that even though the passing game might not be there this week, a lot of guys carrying the ball and certainly very multiple in that way, right?
Yeah, they have 2 running backs the Gophers do, a kid by the name of Shannon Brooks, who, if you're not playing against him, he's a guy that's really fun to watch. He's a physical runner. He'll run people over. He'll lower his shoulder. And he has the ability to take it the distance. He had 6 touchdowns over 30 yards last year, which was the most they've had since Lawrence Maroney played for the Gophers. That's a name certainly people remember. He had he could finish a play in a hurry. In fact, I think I saw the stat this week that this Shannon Brooks has now 9 career touchdowns. He's just a sophomore. And those average touchdown runs are 29 yards. So that tells you he has some breakaway capabilities. And then they got a grinder, who's a tough runner. He doesn't go down on first contact. He'll probably actually start, and his name's Rodney Smith. So those two guys certainly are carrying the load in the backfield, and I would think that they'll especially need to do that if Minnesota plans to win this game on the road on Saturday.
Minnesota Golden Gophers in town taking on the Terps on Saturday at noon. Lots of things going on, including the basketball side, and we will get to the basketball side as well with Mike Grimm. You can follow his journey at Mike Grimm and the number 3. He is the Gopher Radio Network football and basketball. You got double duty, man. I mean, this is where the season starts to overlap a little bit, right, Mike?
Yeah, it gets a little hard, and look, we love what we do. We all love it, but it about the week after Thanksgiving, I look at my kids. I'm like, "You're in high school now, huh? I haven't seen you in about 4 years." That month of November is crazy, but between traveling to different basketball games and then football games on the road. But it's an exciting time, and I'm excited that Washington D.C. this area gets to host the Big Ten tournament come springtime in March, and here we are for Big Ten basketball media day as part of that.
Yeah, I mean everybody will be in Chicago or Indianapolis. They'll be lost, right?
Yeah, they'll be wandering around Rush Street saying, "Where's the basketball?"
Well, for Maryland coming into this conference, and you've been around a long time, give me a little view on that, because you're not one of those guys I'm going to talk to 4 times a year, because we'll see in basketball season, and we'll get to that in a minute, what you guys did to us up at the barn last year. But on the football side, trying to find your way, trying to recruit your way through it. I mean, I know you guys out there now have the Vikings going crazy and playing in that big glass menagerie downtown that when I was out there last summer they were finishing, and of course they were playing in your home last year, missing field goals in January and all that stuff. But, you have a similar situation for your program that I think the Terps have. The Terps may have it double, because the Terps have the problem of the Redskins playing on Sunday and the Ravens playing on Sunday every week after the game. Trying to make your program bigger in that sort of a marketplace where the NFL, and you got all 4 sports in Minnesota and St. Paul, it's a different kind of thing than it is out in the middle of Iowa or out in the middle of Champaign, Illinois, or in places where college football can really thrive, because it's the only thing going on.
It's a fight, there's no doubt. Even last week, the Gophers hosted Iowa, which is the big rival, and they play for that big pig, and they didn't sell the game out. Even traditionally, Iowa people would come up and help the Gophers sell that out, and that was not the case last week. So it is a fight. That's a beautiful football stadium the Vikings are playing in, and they're 5-0, and everyone's excited. And I think people forget, Nestor, that back in the day, pre-1961, when the Vikings showed up as an expansion team in the NFL, the Gophers were Oklahoma or Ohio State or Michigan. I mean, they at that point had won 18 Big Ten titles and 6 national titles, and they had just won a national title in 1960. Minnesota Vikings show up in 61, and the Gophers, they're fighting hard, but they've been a footnote since. And I do think that's a fight. I think you got, similar case at Pitt, probably Georgia Tech,
I mean, look at poor Rutgers. I mean, how's Rutgers ever going to pick itself up?
Rutgers, same way. Stanford probably is the model to follow, but they have a little different flow chart, I think, than some other schools. They're in the middle of a big market as well. But they haven't always been great. I mean, they're on a nice run now, but it's always a fight to, 1, get attention, 2, sell tickets, be relevant. And then I don't know what it's like in this market here in Baltimore and D.C., but in the Twin Cities, sometimes I think it gets unfair because it's a 2-city market like it is here. So there's 2 newspapers, there's 2 all-sports stations. Now with Twitter and message boards, it can get kind of vicious. And I think in a pro market where there's a big college team, and I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm saying it's hard on sometimes at some of these college programs to try to create a branding market, in that sometimes they get treated as if they're pro sports teams. So you got an 18-year-old kid who misses a shot or throws an interception, and all of a sudden you're treating him like a guy who's making $25 million a year as an NBA player. And he's getting ripped, and all of a sudden it's hard. And it's an easy pick. It's an easy thing to target. And so, it's a fight. There's no doubt about it. And I think part of it is understanding where you are in the market, and then strategizing ways to find your niche, make your mark in a unique way. And that's the struggle that I think all these programs that are in big markets are trying to fight. But like you say, if you're in Iowa City or even Madison, Wisconsin is far enough removed from Green Bay or Milwaukee that
it's its own place.
They have their own spot.
Yeah, and it's the only thing going on there. Camp Randall's the place to be there. We're chatting with Minnesota Golden Gophers longtime voice Mike Grimm. The Golden Gophers taking on the Terps football-wise on Saturday. I want to move backwards here with you on this because so in 1998, I flew out to Minnesota to meet Brian Billick playing in the championship game against the Atlanta Falcons. And you remember the Dirty Bird, you remember the missed field goal, all that stuff. Certainly Brian remembers it. Brian is our partner here at WNST.net on behalf of the Living Classrooms. And the day before I met him, the day before that NFC championship game with the late, great Denny Green and Randall Cunningham and all, Randy Moss and all that stuff, I was on the plane and we're flying out, and I look at the USA Today and I looked down and I saw Iowa at Minnesota basketball, and I'm like, man, I don't know much about like Clem Haskins and Professor Tom and Dr. Tom and all that stuff. And I went to the barn in 1990. It's the only time I ever went. I didn't know what I was in for. We scalped tickets pulling into the parking lot there over on the campus. And it was, 5 degrees out because that's the way it rolls in the middle of January in your part of the world. And I walked in there, and I'm going to tell you, I've been to 23 Super Bowls. I've been around the world. I've been to bullfights. I've been to World Cup games, everything. I tell you, that's a hellhole there, right? And when Maryland went in there as the major favorite 7 months ago, I recognized the gym. I recognized everything about it. And I said to my wife, I'm like, that's the craziest place. I mean, it was like going into Hoosiers. It was like going into a scene in the 1950s for basketball. And you guys wailed on us. And that poor kid at the end who was graduating, well, give me his name because that was one of the more poignant, like really from the heart interviews. You see these post-game interviews that are sort of, especially with coaches who don't want to do it. You know what I mean? This was a kid that was feeling the love, one of the greatest moments of his sporting life. And, my wife and I got teary-eyed watching that back in February, and the Terps got beat, man.
Yeah, you're right. That kid name was Joey King, and he is a grinder. He was a local Minnesota guy. Started his career at Drake, did not have any Big Ten offers, had a good freshman year. He had an illness in the family, wanted to get back closer to home.
I remember this part of the story. This was part of the incredible narrative this kid had, right?
Yeah. So coaching change, Patino comes in, and look, he's on the lookout for players, and says, hey, Joey King, yeah, we got a spot for you. And he ends up being a 3-year starter and really a leader of the team. And so they're grinding through this 0-11 start or 0-10. I forget now what it was at that time. But what I think people, they look at 0-10 or 0-11, they say, well, that team stinks. And part of that, like out of those, I forget exactly the number now, Nestor, but part of those 11 games, I want to say like 8, maybe 7 of those games, Minnesota is either leading, tied, or like within 5 points with 3 minutes left. So it's not like they're getting run out of the gym every night. I mean, they're competing. They really threw a couple of games away, so it's hard. And then they're getting ripped by everybody. And, going through 0-10 or 11 is hard. You got, a team that many are picking for the Final Four in your place, and then you pull the upset off, and they rush the floor. Here's 0-11.
The Terps were number 6 in the country.
And you're like, what are they doing?
Yeah.
Very emotional, and so he let the emotions out. He's a caring kid. He's playing. He signed a contract. I forget now. I think in Holland or someplace. So he's not getting rich or anything, but I think he's still enjoying the game of basketball. I would predict that Joey King someday will be a coach for somebody.
Well, I pull for Joey King from now and forever after that, even though we lost that game. We were the 6th team in the country that night. There was no chance the Terps could lose, and they went in and lost, which I think is one of the incredible parts that makes basketball so much different than football. Like, we're not holding out a lot of hope against Ohio State and Michigan, quite frankly, because I've seen them play, but we are holding that hope that Saturday will be a good game. Now, you're in town for basketball, right? I mean, this is Big Ten basketball season and the kickoff and all that stuff. Give me a little lay of the land for the Big Ten as you see it this year, because a lot of folks realize the Terps don't have the talent they had last year, but maybe the sum of the parts will be a little bit better.
Yeah, I think that Maryland's going to be in the mix. It's a tough place to play. And I'm curious, how the transition has been just from a Maryland standpoint. A travel, like even yesterday, I flew out, commercial, and it's a 2-hour flight, and I'm thinking, Indiana gets to bus to half of its games. They just hop on a bus, and 90 minutes later they hop off, and there they are. And for Maryland especially, and Rutgers and Penn State, and then Minnesota's on the opposite side of that, where we charter fly to every place in basketball. But over the course of a year, I don't know, but I wonder if that had some impact. Does that wear out a team by the end?
Well, I think it's cold as hell too. I mean, I think you get off a plane in the middle of Minnesota on February 18th, you're ripe for an upset.
Yeah, exactly. All those things go and happen. But as far as this year, I would think Maryland's going to be right in the mix. It's a hard place to play. It's a long trip out here for everybody. Michigan State has this great recruiting class we're hearing about, and Tom Izzo's not going to go away, obviously, so I think they're in the mix. Wisconsin surprised everybody after the coaching change last year, where it looked like they were going to miss the tournament for the first time in whatever it was, 15 years, and then they go on this run, and now they're picked as the preseason favorite with the preseason player of the year in Nigel Hayes, so they're going to be in the mix. And look, it's a league with really good coaches, and that's the thing. Even at a place like where we're at with Minnesota, the Gophers were close a lot of games last year. Ended up winning, 2 games, 2 and 16 in the league, and that's no good. But you try to piece together how you're going to climb out of that fight, and all of a sudden you realize it's hard because you're going on a given night. You've got you're going against a Thad Matta, you're going against a Mark Turgeon, you're going against a Tom Izzo, you're going against Matt Painter, Tom Crean. I mean, there's good coaches. I'm leaving people out that they can get after it and understand how to win games in this league, and so every night it's a battle. It's not any different than the ACC. I get that, but it is and the schedule it's a grind, that's for sure. So I'm looking forward to basketball getting going here come November. But I would think Michigan State, Wisconsin, Purdue, those seem to be the 3 teams that most everyone likes to fight it out for the top spot.
I tell you, this move to the Big Ten, as much as some Maryland fans, especially the older ones, really hated it, I think it's kind of cool. I like getting on the phone with guys like you out in the Midwest where something else is going on, and it was a lot different certainly in football season when you're playing Duke and Wake Forest and whatnot. But this has been a good move, and I think long term people will forget about those trips down the Tobacco Road because the Big Ten's got a really nice flavor of basketball and football, quite frankly.
Yeah, it's a good variety. I think guys like us really. I enjoy getting out and seeing new spots. So this will be fun Saturday to see the stadium. We were here 2 years ago for basketball, but like you say, you're here for a night, and you get in at night, you play the game, and you fly home. So it's not like you get a chance, to roam around campus like you do for a football game, where you get there a few hours early at the stadium and you get to see a lay of the land. So I'm looking forward to it. I've not been on campus other than that game, but you're right, it's a variety, and not every trip certainly for Maryland fans is way out to Lincoln, Nebraska, or Iowa City, Iowa, or what have you. I mean, it isn't the nice thing is you got multiple airports to choose from here in this metro, and most of them are flying straight shots in. So I think it's a nice variety, and like you say, tradition doesn't happen overnight. So it doesn't take much for something to happen on the floor, on the basketball floor or the football field, where all of a sudden that intense feeling that Maryland fans may have had for Carolina or Virginia, all of a sudden you get those intense feelings now when Ohio State or Michigan or Minnesota or whoever comes to town. Yeah,
we're finding that Alabama still hates Tennessee after all these years. We'll figure that out this weekend. So, hey, man, we'll get together on Saturday, play some football. We'll see you guys during the basketball season. It was great having you on, Mike. I appreciate the time.
Yeah, enjoyed it. Thanks so much.
You got it. Mike Grimm. You can follow him at Mike Grimm3 out on Twitter. He is the voice of Minnesota Golden Gophers basketball and football. And, of course, the Terps entertaining the Gophers at noon on Saturday. The schedule's only going to get tougher from here, folks. So, and of course, basketball season ramping up as well. You can find me out in the Bayou Toyota Audio Vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device by downloading the TuneIn radio app. Big doings all weekend long. Ravens bus trip up to the Meadowlands. We got plenty happening. I'm Nestor. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST Towson, Baltimore. And we never stop talking Baltimore sports. Here with League Championship Series getting going from Cleveland and Toronto and the Cubbies and all that, but our eyes are on the Meadowlands. The Ravens head to the Meadowlands at 1 p.m. on Sunday. We got some seats left on our bus. If you want to join us, toss me an email for a last-minute go, and you can hit the trips tab at WNST.net as well on that. This guy, He predicts, he gives short-term investment counsel. He is Brandon Lang. The movie was Two for the Money. We met him at the Super Bowl last year. We have him on from time to time.